Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the Svarim Chatter podcast. This episode of the podcast, I'm going to be joined once again by Rabbi Hubner, who is the rabbi of Young Israel Bethel in Borough Park, and has edited and published a number of Svarim, including Minchas Chinuch on Pesach, which is the previous episode that we did together. And now we'll be discussing a brand new Haggadah, which is the first volume in a new project called the Zara MS Project. The Haggadah is titled V'Haggadah Lebincha, the Legacy Haggadah. Insights from Gedolim whose Torah is their legacy. Essentially, Gedolim who did not have children. Thank you very much for joining me once again.
How are you? Last time we spoke a couple of years ago, it was a very nice conversation. Got a lot of positive feedback from people. I was unaware that they were listening to you and realized it was me. And it was that was a couple of years ago, as you said. We discussed 2 volumes and the 2 Minchas Chinuchs. I think I might be the only person alive right now who has put out 3 volumes on Pesach in the last 4 years. I think that could be the only 3 full volumes in the last 4 years, and somehow no hotels have called me yet. If I could make a request on the Svarim Chatter to looking for an entertaining speaker who wrote about Pesach, this is called. Reach out to Nachi; he'll arrange.
Yeah, no one called me either, so I don't know. Maybe we're just no one's calling us.
They should have us both on together because they will realize the entertainment value of the 2 of us together.
That's right. So, what is the Zara MS project, and how did it come to be?
So, like the story we're at in Gemara Tainus, Ilf and Rabbi Yochanan were going to leave yeshiva together, and they left yeshiva. And the Gemara says that they took a break under a tree, and they heard the malachim. Rabbi Yochanan heard the malachim talking. Ilf at that point, according to most of the commentators, was even larger and greater and bigger as a tzaddik than Rabbi Yochanan was. And he's sitting under a tree. Rabbi Yochanan hears 2 angels saying, "Let's just crush these people. They're leaving yeshiva. They're leaving Olam Haba. It's Olam Haza." And that one says to the other one, "No, we can't do it because he'll be a great rabbi." So Rabbi Yochanan turns to Ilfa and he tells him, "Listen, did you hear what I just heard?" And he says, "No." So, Ilfa slowly Americanized, backing away, figuring hearing voices. But Rabbi Yochanan took it as a sign to him personally, and he went back to yeshiva. And he turned into Rabbi Yochanan. And Ilfa is a note in a Gemara that most people might not recognize his name. So for some reason, I give full credit to Kadosh Baruch Hu. I got this idea in my head. I've told people over the last... I kept it quiet for many years, afraid that it would be done by others and taken away. But it's really, in the end, the simplest idea. Mamish simple idea that for some reason I got it, no one else did. Maybe that's because of the look of it. We'll discuss the graphics that was done there. I did it a little differently. And it's basically the idea of there were a lot of Gedolim over the generations, passed away without children. The Zera Shimshon, probably the most famous of that for multiple reasons. I had written about the Zera Shimshon in one of my earlier books that I published in 2010. And that's before the train was set up. And I was originally thinking of putting out the Zera Shimshon. I had an original in my house. My brother-in-law, as we both know, Shalom Jacob Zal, from the great Svarim people in the world that we lost a couple of years ago. He gave me an original Zera Shimshon many, many years ago. And he told me about it. And I was thinking Zera Shimshon first, and I do recognize what HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed Art School to do that first, because they did a phenomenal job on that, which I was not thinking in that direction. But this one, I was thinking, and I think I did a phenomenal job as well. Beautiful idea. Many Gedolim who passed away without kids. For a sports metaphor, it's the Zera Shimshon on steroids. I have in this volume alone, this Haggadah is about 90 plus Gedolim. And overall, the project, that's a minor percentage of the project. A lot of them gave special promises. And then specifically for the Haggadah, many of these Gedolim at a certain point in their life could not classically fulfill this mitzvah. They couldn't have a V'Haggadah Lebincha if they didn't have any children at that moment in their life. Zera Shimshon had a child who passed away, so they might have had children who passed away, but at a certain point in their lifetime, they were unable to classically fulfill this Haggadah. And hopefully, by us learning their Torah, becoming their child, we help them in some level in Shemaim to fulfill this great mitzvah. And that was the idea behind it. And again, that's V'Haggadah Lebincha. But the idea is to bring these Gedolim back to life and do multiple volumes on Sukkot, on Chanukah, on Chumash. That's the plan.
Why did you start with Haggadah? Is it because you're into Pesach, like you said?
That's funny. Very funny. I don't think so. I think originally there was a great debate. It's not myself, by the way, as you see from the first page. As I can tell you that when anyone opens the Haggadah, I literally can give hours of conversation from the first until the last page. First page, when you open it, in most bindings, it skips over the first page. And that's a description of what the project was about. We were going to put that on the back cover, but we went with a special back cover. Did you miss it now? No, when you just opened it. Yeah, it misses automatically. And it's a description of what it is, which was originally for the back cover. I'll read it. The Legacy Haggadah was created to honor and share the wisdom of some of the revered Gedolim for reasons only known to HaKadosh Baruch Hu were not to have children as their legacies. These Gedolim span continents and generations. By bringing their timeless Divrei Torah to life, we created powerful connections to the past, thereby bringing forth untold chusim. Some of the Gedolim included in this masterful publication are the Zera Shimshon, the Saba Kadisha, Rav Meir Shapiro, the H. Kodesh, Satmarov, Yismach Yisrael, and the Chazon Ish. Invite them to your home and your table. Speak their words of Torah Yiseder. Be their child that's allowing them to advocate for you on your behalf as a parent would. Like I say, let them bring you a becoming present. And that's the first page that was supposed to be on the back cover, but the cover was done extremely fancy thanks to the Fisher family, and that doesn't handle a lot of words. The last page is a fascinating thing. It's just a Zechanishus page, and it has a picture of a kever. That's an old friend of mine from high school, and he has a great uncle who passed away without kids, and he called me, heard about the project, told me a couple of stories about the person we were hoping to get him in, and it just didn't work, time constraints, space constraints, and he said, you know what, let me put a Zechanishus in, let me put a picture of his kever. And here we have someone that I definitely did not know about, and he's in the back page. So for the front page to the back page, I could talk about it. That doesn't mean the crowd will enjoy it as much as that, but we were nervous. It was not me alone. It was a team, as early pages says, a list of people who really helped me out a lot. This could not have been done in the time span of the last 3 months without this massive team. And we were concerned by starting with an Haggadah, will it diminish the rest of the project? Because Haggadah people understand, everyone picks up a new Haggadah every year. On the other hand, we figured this is something maybe to start it. Let's go all out on this one, and hopefully people realize what we're doing, and they'll send in more pictures, more names, more people we don't know about, more Divrei Torah for future volumes. Chumash and all the other Yom Tovim.
So as you mentioned, it's an aesthetically beautiful Haggadah. The cover is textured. It's really beautiful. It's very unique. Anyone that sees it, you can feel the texture, you can see it. So it's something that alone, and also the Haggadah itself, the graphics, there's color-coded boxes, and on the top, running, it has, Kadesh Rochas Karpas Yachas Magid Roch, so Mighty Matzahs, the whole thing, Mara Kersh Chonag Tzafin Barak, Hallel near so long, when you open the full spread, the 2-page spread,
each one
and it's got
color.
by different color, and it's where, it shows you exactly where you're up to. As you just open, you can see right away where you're up to. That beautiful
incredible
thing.
Designing.
There's each Gadol that you're quoting. You'll have, so the Haggadah you have in Hebrew, and then you have none of a translation of the Haggadah, but the Torah is in English, and you have little boxes for each individual, the Gadol, who they are, a little bio, there's pictures, there's appendices, and we're going to get to a lot of that.
Right. My joke, I said, is that people will pick it up just for the graphics of it. Whether I wrote Dr. Seuss jokes in there, it's aesthetically stunning. I think they'll buy it when they realize that there's a massive school aspect to this as well. Hopefully, just like the Zera Shimshon has taken over the world in that aspect, I think the school aspect will make people actually want to purchase it. And then once they start reading it with the material that we put in, with this team that we put together, there's a smorgasbord of material based on the fact that the Gedolim cover different continents, different generations. There's a lot in there for everyone. I don't know if any person can enjoy everything as much as I did, but there's a smorgasbord of all different types of stories and Gedolim and like you said, biographical snapshots with pictures. And the key of it will be the material we put in. So it's like pick it up for the graphics, buy it for the school, and keep it and read it and learn it for the material of it.
So before we get into the Haggadah, I do want to talk about the editorial team. They mentioned in the beginning, and you mentioned, I know our good friends, Eliezer Brot, Moshe Dembitzer, they're involved, but who else? And you talk about them. Who is in the editorial team, and how did the team come to be?
So just to give Dembitzer a shout out, he has no idea that I'm about to say this, but early on when I had this idea in my head for the last couple of years, more than a few years, and I was putting material together, but more on a vague, and it wasn't really, when am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for this? I was like vague. And then even then, once I started with the team, I was like, let's not tell everyone exactly what we're doing. Let's just give them stuff to edit. People were working on pieces unaware of what the project was about. And Dembitzer on his own, I had given him some material. And at one point, I would say pretty fast, he responded to Rabbi Eliezer Brot. He said, it's just something odd here. Every person I'm working on passed away without kids. He figured it out early on. Brot got me with him. Obviously, Reuven Shmuel Grossman is a person who wrote several svarim on the Minchas Chinuch, so I have a relationship with him for going back many, many years. The next person on the team is my father, who shall live forever. Chizkiah Connor is an old Chavrus of mine, who is one of the masters in the Sifta Gemaras. Right now, he's working on Moshe Shapiro stuff on Oilus and Kalim, world-class Talmud Chacham. Tzaddik Katz was involved very early on. I told him the idea many years ago. He probably, I think for sure, is the first guy who contributed any money to this project at all. He actually gave me a couple $1,000s to make a pitch deck to go around and try to gather money, and that he was the shotgun between, that's his job full-time, he was the shotgun between me and Fisher, who in the end, the reason why it looks the way it does is because Fisher was not only giving the money to make it look nice, but insisting and that it does look nice, which thankfully it turned out that way. Rabbi Lemberger, who now is a little upset with me because as we'll go through this, I will tell you that there was probably more material cut than actually made the final cut, and he just told me last week when he got the Haggadah that he's very excited about it, except that he realizes on the 13 plus sticklach he worked on, only 3 made it to the final cut. So he was like, wait a second, I don't know if I worked that hard, but eventually we'll go in. Yisrael Rosenfeld, first class Talmid Chacham, working guy. He wants great shout outs. Everyone will laugh at that. Rabbi Moshe Rubin's a friend of mine for many, many years. He also was one of the early people that knew about it. Did a lot of amount of work. Rabbi Uri Tiger from Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zevach Pesach, world famous. Rabbi Riesenfeld would not be happy I talk about him, but he came up with a lot of the material here. And Rav Hubner, the name of Rav Hubner, and Baruch Hashem, the team worked in unison. That's just a team of researchers. Then you had the editors and the graphics from Thinking Creation that did a phenomenal job. And I was telling people, a lot of people were like, let's wait for next year. Let's make it perfect. A friend of mine told me that any sefer that comes out perfect clearly took too long to get out. They should have done it much earlier. And people were saying, let's wait. But at the end, the team was tremendous. And I said, a lot of Gedolim and Shemayim waiting for this. There's a cute story that I don't know if you heard. Great story. Rav Hutner was sitting at a wedding, who knows, a wedding, with Rav Michal Feinstein. And he turns to Rav Michal and he says, I want to tell you about how the generation has just collapsed. The Dar Yassim, we have no more great people alive anymore. And Rav Michal says, well, how could you prove it? He says, because in the entire generation, there's only one person in the world that's worth talking Lashon Hara about. How pathetic is a generation? There's only one person worth talking about. And Rav Michal didn't respond. And a few minutes later, Rav Hutner tells him, I want to add to what I said. The generation is so bad that not only is there only one person to talk about, but if you have good Lashon Hara, there's only one person to talk to that could appreciate it. And the problem with the generation is the exact same person. And that was Rav Hutner's great line. I had a similar story here with this project. One of the members found an incredible picture of the Saba Kadisha, and I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. Really unknown picture. And then another member of the team said, wait a second, that picture appears in a different sefer under the name of Rabbi Yedid. And I said this at the time, listen, I have one person in the world who could have found the picture and one person on the team who could have told me the picture is not real. So we don't know who the pictures are, but we didn't put it in. But the idea is we had an all-star team that came together to do this and accomplish what I would say was an incredible accomplishment.
So something that is unique about the Haggadah, obviously, is that all Gedolim didn't have kids. So that being said, it does lend itself to interesting is that there's no real common thread here other than that. So you'll have Sephardi Torah, Hasidim, Ashkenazi, and again, so that's all the different Gedolim, but then also their style Torah could be different because you have Kabbalah and Pshat and rationalistic and again Kabbalah, Hasidim. It's all the did you
and generations and 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. We have everyone. 1500s. We had the uncle of the Beis Yosef. He was originally had about 3-4 pieces in, and at the end he did not. It's a little upsetting. He did not make the final cut. It's a little, and it's not based on anything like that.
Told us Yitzchak?
Told us Yitzchak, yes. So he passed away without kids. He would have been in, but he's not. But 16, 17, 18, 1900s, yes, it definitely lends itself to a smorgasbord of material, which the plus is everyone will find something. And we had to sift through it as a team and decide, these pieces are more relevant. There are times we would find a piece that has, let's say, 2 columns in the old Sfarim. As you know, those look like the old Svardish Sfarim. Each letter is literally the size of your nail. And 2 columns stickled to her Jerush, and we'd have to take out 8 lines and turn it into a piece that, Heinzeke audience would appreciate. That was a lot of work, making the old styles relevant. Now, even within that, you are correct. There's a smorgasbord. It's Jerush, Lamdas, Halacha. So what we did was to avoid the issue, we put the real longer halachic pieces in the back section, and within the Haggadah we kept it to shorter pieces. But that was part of the work that went into it. And again, it's impossible that someone will read this. Stories are usually in 1 column, and the Torah is usually in 2 columns. But there's almost just the original stories we came up with. Everyone's going to enjoy it somehow. No way not. The graphics and the new stories we came up with are all great.
So how'd you find this Torah, these sources? Because it doesn't say, is there a feature you search, Gedolim didn't have kids or had kids that passed away young. Like, how'd you find this stuff?
My joke I was telling people is that if you stop someone on the street, it's again, they're not thinking that way originally. But if you stop someone on the street, I went to many Gedolim, and I would tell them, okay, can you name me 20 Gedolim who died without kids? And no one's coming up with 12. Very few people. And we're talking about stars here. Nobody's coming up with 12. And here we put together in this, I got the 90. So that's a minor percentage. So it was definitely difficult. The team was good. I would say one of the giveaways could be the names of the Sfarim. Zera Shimshon. And as you know, the Zera Emes told us Yitzchak. So sometimes when you start looking at the names of the Sfarim, it's a little bit of a giveaway. Sometimes. And then you start reading through Agdamas, and it's not the She'eris Yaakov. The word She'eris again could be the same thing. That was one of the great finds that we had in the Sefer. A Gadol from Brisk from the late 1600s, superstar who had multiple kids who passed away, predeceased him. And he writes about his 10-year-old boy who knew 500 blap al peh. I don't know the Tzur Sadah for the Gemaras back then, but either way, that's very, very, very impressive. So that was a little bit of a help. And then, again, a lot of research. And I say the Gedolim and Shemaim were reaching out to us.
So what was your criteria? Because like you said, some of them didn't have kids, and some had kids that predeceased, some had 1 or 2 generations later. They would what was your criteria here?
Excellent question. So that was also part of the debate that the team had to decide. So we decided early on, that was we were accepting right away. That anyone who had kids who predeceased them, they were going to be in simply by the fact that there's Zera Shimshon, who's really the paramount of this entire project, if you could say so, had a child who predeceased him. So that became right away, that was an easy one to decide. People whose families don't exist anymore, they were like the secondary block. So if we had an excuse to get them in early on, very early on, Rabbi Moshe Hubner, he got in. He had a child who predeceased him and a second child who outlived him, but they were all wiped out in the Holocaust. Hashem Yakum Damam. So if we had an excuse to get them in, we put them in. Adoption became a huge issue. Usually we were more strict about not putting them in. And there were a few exceptions to yes, put them in. But most of the time adopted kids were not in. And again, each one of these situations we sat down and discussed, and everyone made the decisions. We hope that they're happy and Shemayim with us. That's what we hope. We hope HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent it to our team, our graphics, and these decisions, and through the other volumes we'll get more in. But yes, it wasn't easy.
Okay, so maybe we'll get back to some more overall questions about the project, about the Haggadah later. But let's talk about some examples. Give an example stylistically of what the Sefer, and really there's a range, as we said. This Haggadah is got everything.
It's wild. It's really wild. Like there's a Svardasha Ashkenazi. His name is Reb Nissan Ashkenazi, and he wrote on Tehillim. He has you wouldn't. I don't want to sound like I'm being racist. You wouldn't expect this so much, but he has an interpretation. Let's say Amakas B'chayris, that the Torah keeps on using the word Ba'aretz, and he says Ba'aretz meant that there was a specialty in the situation of Amakas B'chayris, that any B'char who had previously had passed away came back to life, resurrected, and was killed again in Makkah V'chayris. So that's an idea that we thought we got to get this in somehow. So we did it by the Makkahs. And then we found someone who said maybe even the Yiddish Neshamas had some type of resurrection as well during Makkah V'chayris. And again, that's a fascinating idea that anyone can enjoy. The more longer Lumdasha pieces went to the back, and stories. Minhagim, I'll tell you a great one. It's unbelievable. When you open the book, open the Sefer, Mamish by Kaddish, we saw that the Minig by Saba Kadisha, that he writes the Saba Kadisha, that there's a custom that he should make a Bari Min Psamim by the Seder. And he has a gematria there. The gematria is because Lel Pesach is gematria Reich. It might be based on a Balaturim by the story of Yitzchak and when he gave over the brachas on Pesach night. There's a Balaturim that there's a lot of spent on because the gematria does not work out. And it's funny, I showed it to 2 people on the team. And one person told me, this is such a wild idea. I don't know if you want to start your Haggadah first thing out of the box with some wild minhag that nobody ever heard of based on a gematria. I don't know if you want to do it. And then another member of the team, when I told him, was like, come on, everyone knows about this minhag. Come on, everyone knows what do some on Lo Pesach. So it was like some of these things for us were extremely impressive and wild, but comes from different generations, different areas, different everything. And every page has a story behind it. Every gadol here has a story behind it. We did something I'm very proud of. Page 14 and 15, there's a school that brought down in many svarim that we couldn't find a real source, but Rabbi Hubner says it, and he's good enough for the source. That the Aruch Haim HaKadosh, who also passed away without children, great debate. We went with Rabbi Golas on his biography of the Aruch Haim HaKadosh. Rabbi Golas, by the way, also passed away without children, so we went with that one. And he says that Aruch Haim passed away without children, and if to read the interpretation of Haggadah Levincha, that pasuk in the Torah, Rabbi Hubner and others bring down that it's a tremendous school to have children. So that took time. We placed it in Hebrew with Nakudas for the people who have more difficult reading Hebrew without the Nakudas, Shabbat Chol Nefesh. And then we did an English interpretation of those words. So you can read the English and know what the Aruch Haim is saying, or you can read the Hebrew. If the word for it, you want to do it. We didn't take the word for it interpretation from our school. I actually want to say that I looked at our school, but we did more the interpretation of it as opposed to the word for it interpretation of it. So we put at the beginning of the Seder, Leila Seder, and hopefully, everyone who picks up the Haggadah, besides the average schooler, if I may say such a thing, average school of every gadol passed without kids becomes the Meilat Yosher. We have as well the school of the Aruch Haim HaKadosh right there in the front that has worked for people. So hopefully.
Who is the oldest gadol cited here? You mentioned Tolas Yitzchak. He didn't make it in. He was obviously, but he was before they gave her to Sfarad. Expulsion in 1492. Who is the oldest cited?
The oldest cited, I think, pretty much would be the Aruch Haim's a while ago, but no, the Rameya Tarnapola. Pre-last names. Rameya Tarnapola, she wrote a whole stick of Torah of his. Great find, by the way. Again, one of the old Svaris, not Svaris, he's a Tarnapal. So for me, it's a connection because Mechaskanach was the Rav in Tarnapal generations later. He was the Rav there. But Meir Tarnapal, it was a young child during Tachbatat. That would be mid 1600s. He writes a tremendous Haggadah there. Very depressing, to be honest. Also part of the project, we did not want to make it a depressing project, but so we tried to make it a little better, even though Nebuch, Hashem's reason they passed away without kids, we tried to fix it up. And Rameir Tarnapal actually has a fascinating idea, which later on, I would say was modified, but I'm sorry, he never saw it, by the Ar Samech. So we put that in the back, a long piece of Rameir Tarnapal on the Ar Samech, basically connecting the medrash that says that there were 4 merits the Yidden had when they left Egypt. They didn't change their names, they didn't change their language, they didn't snitch on each other, and they remained moral. They didn't fall for immorality. And he bases, though, Rav Meir Tarnapal first, 1600s, he bases those four merits into the 4 levels of exile, that there were 4 levels of redemption. Rav Meir Simcha also passed away without kids. He had a child who predeceased him. And Rav Meir Simcha later used the same idea, used the 4 merits to connect to the 4 Dawla Kaisis. So we put the 2 together. Perfect idea. We have Rav Meir Simcha, we have Rav Meir Tarnapal, and they both discussed how the 4 merits are just not this random 4 for 4, but it's 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. And we wrote it out at length. That's in the back because that's a longer piece that not everyone necessarily is going to jump into and read simply and enjoy it. So we put that more in the back. And that he would be probably the earliest. Arachaim HaKadosh is pretty early, right? But he's already 1600s to 1700s. So I would say that Arachaim HaKadosh and Rav Meir Tarnapal will be the first 2. The great find that our good friend Eliezer was very excited about, found by Rabbi Wiesenfeld, tucked away in the back of the safe for a few pieces on Karpas, is the Sheris Yaakov, Yaakov ben Yoel, it's amazing. The Sefer, Rabbi Meir Tarnapal as well. These are Svarim that are never quoted by anybody. Go on, you have to be good into the Yitzhak Chachma. I'm not great at it, but the people who are good in Yitzhak Chachma can tell you that these are not there. Sheris Yaakov, we actually had originally 3 separate shtiklachim. He had 6 lines on Karpas that made it in, and then he had 2 other shtiklach, one on Shabbos Haggadah that did not make it in, and another one on the rapid production of the Yiddish people in Egypt that did not make it in. Will be in the next volume. But even like that piece on Shabbos Haggadah, he has an amazing piece on Shabbos Haggadah that you see later on. Talmidei Hagoyim might have quoted him. He was born in Brisk, printed in Vilna. Knesset Cheskel calls him a Gadol Adar. Person who writes about himself that he finished Shas every year. Again, he had a 10-year-old kid who knew 500 blot that did not survive. 2 other sons who passed away, and a daughter with a family passed away, not to be too depressing. He says he's writing the Sefer only because of that reason. She'eris Yaakov. She'eris means like the leftover of what Yaakov has. And for some reason, the Sefer that was not quoted. In the Zera Emes project, long-term, is not just different volumes of anthologies of this on different parts, but even to start potentially reprinting some of these Svarim. She'eris Yaakov is something that for some reason lost to society for 300 years. And hopefully we're going to bring him back, and he's going to be an advocate for us and give us more than just an Afikam present. Hopefully he'll advocate for Klal Yisrael and everybody. And it's nice because you actually see some of his Torah. Can't say, Talmidei Hagoyim is in Vilna. Are they quoting him? Not by name, but maybe his Torah was surviving, but not mentioned at all. And thankfully, Mamish Min HaShamayim, we found a piece, used it. Again, 1 out of the 3, but I'll tell you the other one that didn't make it in. For why not? There's a famous idea that the Yidden were producing at a fast rate. The obvious explanation would be why, because they HaKadosh Baruch Hu want them to leave earlier than the 400 years of work labor. So in 400 years, if you have 10 people working 400 years, if you double the output, you have 20 people now working. If they're producing at a fast rate, they'll work in 200 years. So the double and triple the rate of Klal Yisrael producing at a very fast rate was really only done so they should be able to leave early. He says a different way. He says that Klal Yisrael had one of the details, one of the necessary requirements for the Jews to be able to leave Egypt was going to be if they had 600,000 people. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu realized he had to get them out early. So to make the production of the people at a faster rate, in order for them to hit 600,000, when they'd be able to leave early. But it wasn't because of the workload, it was because you want to hit 600,000. As we know, the Yidden left Mitzrayim with 600,000. Baruch Hashem. Great idea. So 2 didn't make it in, 1 did make it in. But again, there's probably more material not in than isn't. And there are Gedolim that are not mentioned that people are, my joke is how many people approached me in the last 2 weeks and said, how come you didn't quote my grandfather? He died without kids. But overall, there are definitely many people not in. And eventually, that's the plan. We'll get everyone, we'll get Klal Yisrael involved.
And you mentioned the Zera Emes, the Bishmal Kayan and Modena, Laudi Do Sakaradoti, he's in here, and he has the Haggadah Shevach Pesach on Pesach. on the Sholem Eshev and the machine matzah controversy with Shulei Mason. He made it in. Eliezer Brot was very involved with that volume with Shirley Tress, and others with the last year came on machine matzah, so that's in here.
What's shocking about the matzah controversy, machine matzah, is that the two main antagonists, if that's a word, I don't know what the word is, the two main people, the opposite sides, was the Sholem Eshev and of Chaim Demeter, and both passed away without children. So it was an easy thing to decide to put in. We know Rabbi Eliezer brought into the sugya. We had to modify it to have them be the central characters in the story. And again, I would say that, when I said earlier that when you go to people and ask them to name people out Gedolim, I think the biggest surprise by everybody, for some reason so far, and no one heard of Meir Tarner Puddle, so nobody knows if he had kids or didn't have kids. I think the biggest surprise by most people was the Sholem Eshev. Many people I approached were like, Sholem Eshev had no kids? How could that be? But Sholem Eshev did not have children, and I'm a Galtziana, so I knew that as a young child. But that would be one of the surprise people in there. We had an index in the back to make it easier for people to know who's in there. Again, a lot of people are not. The basic soul of Ger is not in there. The Sri Aish, Eliezer is very upset about it. Sri Aish, we had some big pieces, did not make it in. We were trying to make the Haggadah equal distance. So like on Halach Manya, there'll be as much as Halach Manya as Dayenu and B'Tzeis Yisrael. If you read through the Haggadah, we have stuff on Halal, on Nirtza, on Kairach. We wanted to spread it out. So within the spreading out, pieces had to be cut. We don't want to have 18 pages on Halach Manya, then you're running through the Haggadah.
Yeah, there are contemporary, Rishon Yaakov Borenstein, going a little further back, Shlomo Hyman, Gershon Liebman. So yes. You mentioned Rav Margolis.
Yes, 100%. And again, these are people that, Rav Margolis, I think people, because of big, it's funny that for some reason, Rav Margolis, I don't know him personally, it's really Borenstein. I don't know him personally. He gave those pictures. I know you're close with him. He gave those pictures of Rav Shmuel Yaakov with Pedikas Chametz and selling Chametz. It's like a perfect picture to have. And people told me, when I was telling about people, they all heard of Rav Margolis from the raid bites. And what about Rav Shmuel Yaakov Borenstein? For some reason, that name gets lost a little bit, and also with the no kids. Some people understood Rav Margolis didn't have any children. Somehow that became more popular, but the Rav Shmuel Yaakov was not so famous not having children, and we quote him a few times. He has a lot of good stuff in general. We also cut some of his pieces. We had written up much more pieces. He has a famous piece on Karpas that we had written up. And then in the end, we decided on how much do we want to put on Karpas. So, we had to cut Karpas. We can't have 9 pages on Karpas. Not going to work. And in Mitzvah, in the next version, the next edition, we put that piece in as opposed to we put it now.
So also not only men, you have women. Sarah Schneer made it in.
Sarah Schneer made it in. I have a friend of mine, give him a non-shout out because he failed me, so he'll know who he is. Talmud of Rapenach. And I called him up to give me some shtickler from Rapenach, and he did not do it. So he knows who he is right now. I'm going to send him this clip. And he called me up now with Tinus, and I told him, listen, Rapenach didn't make it in, but 3 other Leibowitzes made it in. And the Chama was one of them. But the bigger find of the women would be this Rebbitzin, Sarah Rachel Rivka Leah Horowitz. An unknown, unusual name, as we know. I don't know if there's anybody else named that name. Sarah Rivka Rachel. Sorry, even I get mixed up sometimes, but it works.
I was looking at my wife, and she's like, "How many names over there? What's going on over here?" I didn't know about either. I was reading the little biographical sketch. It was very nice to read about that. I had no idea. That's why it's very nice that Sarah Schneer, okay, many know about. So you have a biographical piece written by Eliezer Brot, but a lot of them we don't know, and so it's like, oh wait, let me just read the history. Let me read the biography on each of these. Like some of them, there's a small little box, and some there's a longer essay. So
the boxes are about 215 words, 220 words, gives you the basics. And some of the people we decided to go a little lengthy. Obviously, this Rebbitzin who's unique, and we were going to go gender equality, DEI. We accepted her. And it happens to be that she has real Torah. She has real Torah. It's not like only that she wrote Svarim. She wrote Tikkun, but she also has a famous question on Pesach that we put in. And her question was, I happen to have quoted in the Mechasanach as well, but the question was, if the Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu protects tzaddikim from, even by mistake, eating non-kosher stuff, that means that you'll never have a tzaddik eat non-kosher food by accident, because it's inherently a bad thing to have ingest non-kosher food. So she asked the question, wait a second, the Zohar says that anyone who doesn't eat chametz on Pesach, Be'eitav quotes it. It might be a Zohar and Arizal. Anyone who doesn't eat chametz on Pesach is guaranteed not to have any averos the whole year. So she said, let's put this Gemara together with the Zohar, and we got a problem here. If the Gemara says everyone is protected from not eating anything that's inherently non-kosher, then you should be protected from not eating chametz. And then the second Zohar says anyone not eating chametz is protected the whole year. So how is every tzaddik not automatically protected? That was her question. Again, she's Reb Itzal Hamburger's sister, and we brought her in with her friend, we'd say Vaita Karev, a Rebbe Dina Hag. That's Rabbi Yamin Hag. They reprinted his sefer a couple of years ago. Phenomenal job. That was her sister. So Amir Hashem, we definitely have women in there who could contribute, and if they didn't have kids, they're in. men, women, gedolim. Some would not. I don't know the word how we define a gadol, but yeah, we put people in who could hopefully advocate for us in Shemayim.
And as you said, also it's a blend of Torah and stories, right?
So the stories usually are the one columns. I didn't write in the Haggadah, I forgot to. Stories are usually one column or more different types of pieces, standalone pieces. And the real learning, if you can call that phrase, is going to be two columns. In general, what we did was an editorial decision early on. The board came together with this, is that we decided we were not going to do the English translations of the words. So we don't write, why is this night different? The why is this night different is not there. The instructions are there. Lift your cup, that's there. But we took out all the interpretations. Translations, and that saved about 25,000 words that we added in more real material. The book is a little, I'll call it a book physically, the safer, but the book is a little taller and a little wider than the average page. So I would say roughly, and we cut out the instructions, we went a little smaller font to get more in. We were trying to help people out. And we have probably about 60 to 70,000, 2 to 3 times of a regular Haggadah word-wise. In fact, one of the sponsors, not the Fisher family, they've been positive. One of the people who gave me some money was very active. He called me up on Friday, and he said he never would have given me the money as much as he gave me, knowing how it would turn out. And I'm like, okay, what did I fed you? Was there a biography? Is it the female aspect? What's wrong here? And he said, I would have given you half the money to have you put out half the material. He said, there is no way I can get through this at a Seder or in 8 days of Pesach. This is a very compact, whatever the word is. There is a lot of material in this volume. Again, I would say 3 times the average Haggadah.
One of the things you just mentioned there, which is beautiful about it, is a lot of Haggadahs. You buy Haggadahs, everyone, all these Haggadahs in the store, you get a Haggadah, you come to the Seder, and then you finish the Seder after the second Seder, and you're done. There's nothing else. What are you reading Haggadah the rest of Pesach for, really? Here, there's stories, there's Torah, there's other things. For example, also you have Pesach with Gadol X. So you have with Rav Chamoy, you have Rav Shmuel Auerbach, you have a whole list of like minhagim and different things they were doing over Pesach.
Correct. And Rabbi Chamoy, I would say, only because you're running a Svarim chatter, most of the population today has not heard of Rabbi Chamoy. And he was a unique individual. You're not supposed to say, of a student of mine always tells me, never say very unique. I always say there's a few people who can be called very unique. Rabbi Avram would be one of those people who published 60 Svarim, might have been a doctor, might have spoke 15 languages, and not all got published in the end. And he was an interesting figure who traveled the world, has a lot of interesting minhagim that he saw around the world. We did Pesach with Rabbi Chamoy just to give you like snippets, shorthand, indexes of just different things from different Gedolim. Rabbi Avram is a wild idea. I think a lot of people, Gedolim or Rabbanim of today, who buy the Haggadah, he's in the beginning. They're going to use some of his stuff for drashas because he doesn't explain it. He quotes the minig that he holds as a great minig to blow shofar when you bake matzahs. I'm sure every darshan in America today can come up with an idea of why baking matzahs connects to the shofar. Let that create more Torah for these Gedolim. He has a minig which, again, he says, he doesn't say where it's from, second night Pesach, to only say the Haggadah in a foreign language, except for the words of Ahisha Amda. I myself do not have a drasha yet on that, but if we wanted, I said this in the last time, a lot of the Gedolim themselves, again, we have, let's say, 90 Gedolim here, a lot of the Gedolim themselves could have an entire Haggadah. The Meshech Chochmah could have an entire Haggadah. A lot of ideas were discussed and could have an entire volume on it, but we're limited. So the Gedolim will only get a few. We're going to cut it down. We're going to chop things off. And on Minhagim, Rav Chamoy is worthy of probably 5 volumes, and hopefully maybe someone will step forward and sponsor such a thing. He just unbelievable Haggadah. And again, here's a minute. I don't even have an answer for why we would do this second night Haggadah in a different language. I can't answer that question at all, to be honest. Why you'd blow shofar together with baking matzahs. Again, I'm sure you could put a volume together of separate drashas. We should do that one day. Put out a separate journal of people explaining just a minute of blowing shofar by matzahs. Already most people I've approached who've seen that have told me they have ideas for it. So Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Avram was a big one, a big find. He had one kid also, by the way. We wrote that. He had a wife and a child who passed away the same day, and he held, whatever that means, he took an onus on himself, or a kapara, and he traveled. He went traveled the world. We have the same thing with a Shalom Eshev, interesting story with the Trop, that him and the Belzerov, they decided what the kapara will be based on the Trop and the Psukim. We have a story where Chaim Moshe, I could say it over now. I think it's amazing. I told it to someone this week. That the story again, how much of these stories, where they're from. Reb Chaim Moshe had someone come to his house, one of these guys who was pretending to be very wealthy, whatever that looked like in Vilna in the 1930s and 40s, I can't tell you. He came to Reb Chaim Moshe. He was bluffing it for a while. He was hoping that he would, turn that business around, bet on that last horse and that last stock and make his money back. And it didn't work. And he came to Reb Chaim Moshe Pesach night, and he whispered to him. He said, "Rebbe, I have nothing. It's all over. I've been bluffing." They let him in right away. The Gabbaim let him in right away. They didn't know this yet. So he got into Reb Chaim Moshe, a personal audience right before the Seder, and he told Reb Chaim, It's all nothing. None of us exist anymore. What do I do now? And Rabbi Chaim Oizer, Chaim Oizer, first-class ballot Hall of Famer, genius, right? He understood quickly how to do things, and he banged on the table and he said, "Listen, everything is treif. The pots are treif. The food is treif. Everything must be thrown out. Start over again." And all the people listening there are like, "Oh man, he just lost everything." So that unbeknownst to them that he really didn't have anything, they all provided him with the food, the matzah, the wine. It was, a great story. We have a tradition we bring down by several people, the Saba Kadisha, Rabbi Chaim Oizer as well, so I thought of it now, that they used to have a quick seder, mamish a couple hours, and then just be available for the klal to answer questions. They felt that the klals, people don't want to bother up on them. They said, "No, we finished our seder right away, come and bother us." We use that minhag as well, and we try to quote and hug them from different people, and you do see an infusion from different sides of the world, different generations, Sfard, Ashkenaz, Yeki, even though the Torah might be different, but the minhagim and the love for the Seder and all of that definitely connects to have what we hope to put together to a great, a great aesthetically beautiful volume and loaded with material. That's what we hope.
The back, I want to talk more about, we've mentioned some of these appendices, extra material in the back, some fascinating stuff. You also have a 2-page English adaptation of the L'Shem Yichud controversy, which is you adapted it from Rabbi Shimshimanowitz's Haggadah. Alex Zayas, by the way, Alex Zayas printed it. I want to say that's here because the Rabbi Yehuda, when he talks about it, it's to his shuvas to B'Sachar Bar Balach, the Bines Yisachar. By the way, Shuli Bornstein really did a whole raid bite on this, went into the whole L'Shem Yichud, and again,
on L'Shem Yichud on Bar Balach?
On the L'Shem Yichud, and he talked to Bar Balach, he talked to didn't have kids, and but the L'Shem Yichud, you could read all about this in Shimon Shimanowitz's Alex Zayas Haggadah, if you can get it. I don't think it's easy to get, but yes, you could. There's some fascinating stuff here.
Rabbi Shimon sent me the English version and the Hebrew version. When he noticed, he did not realize in the end I actually put it in. He did not realize that he made the cut. And we were expecting a great discount from Ali's Eyes. It didn't happen necessarily, but we'll have to give him that shout out. But when he found that his name was in there, he was very, very excited. I did add, because again, L'Shem Yichud from the back, not sure how many people are excited about reading about L'Shem Yichud. I was, but the Hebrew, we're going to expand on that version. But we quoted some fascinating stories in our book, by the way. The way he passed away it's literally, you can allowed to say such a phrase, make a movie out of it. We quoted the whole way he passed away, which is quoted in the Sefer when they reprinted it, with some fascinating brachas and promises he made to advocate for people. And again, hopefully I can't say we're bringing it back because obviously Raid Bites already did that, but hopefully we'll extend what Raid Bites began.
And in the back, you have a nice index which tells you each gadol what page you're on. So it's very nice. Someone that wants you to slip to the back and look through, so they can do that. And again, it's really full of material. I want to also talk about in the beginning where the haskamas that you got. And
it happens to be interesting that I do have to say this because one of my rebbeim called me and he was trying to figure out the order of the haskamas. And the order was, I'm not choosing who's greater. Rav Nebenzahl clearly is I don't want to, not judging, but Rav Nebenzahl. So everyone else there has to realize who Rav Nebenzahl is. And the order was just on how I received them. And Reb Breidowitz, it came out perfect for me because he's the first one that I received and he's in English. So for most of the English audience, and he really wrote a beautiful haskama, probably spoke to him a little bit because of his personal situation, but maybe, maybe not. Maybe he looks at himself as, we're not touching that third rail of adopted kids. He was very, very, very positive toward it. And beautiful haskama saying that he wrote himself. There's so many Haggadahs that come out every year. Everyone knows how many Haggadahs can there be a new angle. And he said, Baruch Shem, this is a new angle. And then the only thing I lost out on, I didn't land out getting us coming from Sfardis. We got Ashkenazim, we got Litvish, and most of the people approached were very positive. Reb Simcha Bunim called me. He called me after it came out. We sent him his copy, and he was mamish rating me on. Do more volumes. Do this. This is unbelievable. I've heard from other people that certain rabbanim were receiving it. I don't know if they want the names on public, who were emotionally crying when they saw the idea behind this thing. They were unaware of it. They did not give us comments, and they offered to give in the future. Rav Kalman Epstein, my Rebbe, when he heard about the idea, he has an uncle, Rav Moshe Shkop, to pass away without kids, but he wrote out that he was very into it. Said to Ellis Gadol when I told him about it the first time, and he added some stories about Rav Dov Sokolovsky, comes on early on. He knew him personally. Said an amazing story about Rav Dov, again, an unknown person in today's world. And Rav Dov, when he was already older and not fully aware of what was going on, used to cry. And they would ask him, "Are you feeling okay? What's bothering you?" And he would say, "Shchinta b'galusa." You see a person who was in that matzav, and that's what he was going back to his core. His inner core was Shchinta b'galusa. Reb Zelig used to send people to him for brachas. And again, unknown person. And Torah, I can't say there's a lot of Torah from him, but we got at least a couple of great stories for Gedman. Some people came in through the stories, some people came in through the Torah, some people from Haggadah. We're trying to get people in. The Gedolim again, 90, we have about 90 plus easy in this volume, and That's a minor percentage of the entire Zeremis project, and probably some of them we could put volumes out on. We have a picture of Simcha Wasserman Zatzal with his two brothers, Hashem Kimdamav. All three obviously passed away without children, two were killed. And that's a picture of the three of them. So the other two we didn't put Torah in, but we put the picture in. And again, a lot of Gedolim are not mentioned at all. And eventually, that's the plan. Nothing personal.
You can't get to everybody, especially in just the first volume.
I'm telling you that already. This volume has, at one point, someone told me article does between 60 to 80,000 words for Haggadah. This is, to say double that is an understatement. So we did a lot, but you can't walk into your Seder table with an encyclopedia. Even if you're thinking you should have it on your table the entire Pesach. One Rav told me, as I put into the Akdama, everyone should buy two, which I'm very pro, by the way. One for Pesach, one for the rest of the year. So I definitely advocate that as well.
And yeah, so it's 270 pages around, but it's almost all content because you just have the words of Haggadah with English instructions. There's no translation here, so it's
no
full of content.
Fuller font, and it's I don't know if you can tell holding it alone, but it's slightly larger in width and height than most Haggadahs. So between the words, the no translate, we cut out Shir Hashirim. There was an argument about that because they were like, "Oh, it's only 5 pages," but you start adding 5 pages. Here we put in a lot of pictures. I say it's literally a picture is 1,000 words. So when you're putting in a picture, everything gets moved. Which pictures come in, which pictures go out. We also didn't put in the Akdama of Shamsham Astrapoli. We took that out because, again, we were trying to get more. I had an entire kuntras on Carbon Pesach that was taken out. We probably had 40 pages on Shabbos Hagadol, and we decided that will not make it to this volume, the Shabbos Hagadol thing. Maybe we'll have a separate volume one day, or maybe part of another Pesach companion as opposed to Haggadah. Maybe a lot of material was not in, and hopefully, eventually, the same way I believe at 90 Gedolim pushed for this one, they're going to push me to put out the rest of them.
So one thing I do want to ask you, I noticed each shtickle, if you will, each piece, it doesn't always say the source where it comes from, does it?
It's actually funny. While we were using on this, a couple of the board members, the editorial board members, like, you know what? There's not a real safer. As much as it is a safer, it detracts from the flow of the reading of it. So they were telling me that certain places take it out. So when it was one safer, we figured people could look. Originally, by the way, shout out to Tevi Kagan. We had the Zer Emes written as Zer Emes, and he was like, wait a second, that's his other safer. It's really the Haggadah Zeshevach Pesach. So we had to switch that around, and hopefully we tried to, when we thought there would be no way to get to it, we put the sources in there, but sometimes we took the sources out. Anyone can contact us. We're putting up a website called the Zeremis website, but yes, we have the sources in most places. But again, it was a lot of extra words when you're putting in 100 pieces, and you think it's only 100 sources. 100 sources adds 3 pages to your safer of what we call non-direct content. So when we thought people wouldn't get to it at a certain odd location, we tried to put it in. Every decision was made. I used to tell people there's no good and bad, and that's the problem because no right and wrong. There's no right and wrong. That makes it good and bad. Every decision, there's no right, no wrong, but okay, that makes it, yes, a positive and negative. But we tried, and hopefully, everyone's happy with what we pulled off. I think most people are going to be extremely positive because there's something in there for everybody. But great Gedolim were cut, great pieces were cut for sure.
Okay, so I'm going to link to it in the show's notes. It's available. Feldheim is distributing it. It's available in the farm stores. You can pick up a copy. What's the price of it?
That was a great debate. So originally we were thinking $29.99 to go with what the other great companies are doing, and that's what Feldheim was saying. Let's match. And then when he got the book physically, he was like, "No, I think we got to go higher. It's a gift because of the paper's more expensive, the cover was more expensive. We did this in only a few months. Baruch Hashem, again, it was subsidized mainly by the Fisher family. I say mainly, maybe more than mainly. And he put in a lot of work to get the nice cover, the nice paper. But based on time constraints and deciding we're not waiting for next year, we really the staff went in all out, 27 hours a day for 3 months on this. We could not ship it across. That cost an extra, this is heavy. There's a heavy volume physically. It's an extra few dollars a safer and everything. And the color in this, and it's more like a gift item besides being something. So we settled on the official price being $36.99 as opposed to $29. And stores give discounts. They have the rights to do that. And so I don't know if it actual goes $36.99 every store you go into. It depends how well you know the guy. Obviously, Swarm Chatter, you mentioned them when you go into the store. There's probably automatic discounts. I don't know how that works.
I'll link to Feldheim. They're distributing it. If anyone, like I said, you can go into your local store. You can pick it up. It's available in many, many locations.
Yeah, Feldheim's doing it.
Yes, they're being the distributor. So to finish up, what's next? Is there a plan on what's next? I mean, obviously you mentioned you have a lot of different ideas, but is there one idea that you're working on now, or you're waiting to see?
The major one right now, which we had the editorial board, we actually discussed with a few people who weren't sure. We're going to do now it's like a sister to this project. The two main things we're working on now is going to be a Hebrew volume of Haggadah, which we already started working on it. We're just really waiting for the feedback on the English for what the crowd likes. Do they like the pictures more, like the stories more? So we're really waiting on that, but it has begun. And also, we're finished basically. A Minchas Chinuch, it's based on Minchas Chinuch who had children. I'm one of them, so we can't see that many children. But the Minchas Chinuch had descendants. But we put out we're about to publish. For probably the next couple months, we're looking for hopefully 6 sponsors, potentially 6 mitzvahs of the Sefer HaChinuch on marriage and having children. So you could divide them. Pruvu, getting married is a question of it's a mitzvah. Shana B'Shayna, about going to the army, it could be 2 mitzvahs by the Chinuch, 3 by others. We would put those together. Has a lot of people in there who didn't have kids. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky was famous for telling people. I know a couple people he hasn't knows. If you're looking for shidduchim, learn the sugya of kedushin. If you're looking for children, learn the sugya of pruvu. The Atzei Al Moigen, who I'm sure you're aware of, in his sefer on pruvu, writes in the beginning that one of the reasons he's writing about this is either the hopes to have children and place the children. So we're going to do a real intense sefer, English probably first, probably Hebrew as well. 6 mitzvahs negate of marriage and children. Hopefully, people will learn it and be rewarded. That's Torah. Shluach HaKhan is famous. People learning it. Different things are famous for learning it to create this, and Pruvu and Kedushin, these things should create it as well. Hopefully, with the right sponsorships, we put that out. That's probably the first, because that will be even before next Pesach. And then a Hebrew version. And then again, we have a Hanukkah, which I don't know if we'll put out for this year. Hanukkah based on the other two we're working on.
How can anyone get in touch with you or anyone from the team?
So the team, I wasn't sure it was allowed. On the inside jacket of the Sefer, when everyone misses that first page, and they go to the second page, in the back of it has my email. I didn't put a phone number here. It has my email. It has the zeraemes.com, which is a website with easy to remember, Zeraemes, which again is the name of the Sefer produced by, as you said, Rabbi Shmuel HaKohen. But zeraemes.com might be, even pictures. I'll tell you one great story here. There was so many miracles that happened. Every page has a story. I'm telling you. I'm a nephew, but a relative of Rabbi Hubner, who had kids. But Rabbi Hubner was one of the great writers of the 1800s. He was a Rav in Nizhny for over 50 years. He's probably the second or third most quoted gadol in Tamim and Hagim. And every one of my Svarim, I've brought from, Zaycha to publish over 15, I try to bring him in. And someone reached out from Eretz Yisrael a couple of years ago to me and Shalom, to Al-Habda ben Chaim L'Chaim, and he reached out that he married a relative of Rabbi Hubner, a grandchild. We didn't even know. So we're like 7th cousins or something, which doesn't mean much. And in the emails at one point, he told me that he is he's also an uncle, Ephraim Zaychik, a real Litvisha, married an uncle of Rabbi Hubner. Back in my head, it was just such an odd concept that Rabbi Hubner, Prado Galicia, would have an uncle from Ephraim Zaychik. And then when I started working on Ephraim Zaychik, who passed away with our kids, some great stuff there, I reached out to this person who I spoke to a couple of years ago, and I said, by the way, I'm working on something. So you tell me something from the family, and he sent me 2 pictures that really don't exist in the world, family pictures. So we're hoping, that people are going to reach out. That's why we set up this website, zeraemes.com, or my Gmail, hubners@gmail, just to people who have relatives that about to pass away with kids with pictures and stories, verlach, and hopefully this will grow into something that I want it to be, with Hashem's help.
Yeah, your email, hubners, hubners @gmail.com. I'll put that in the Zeraemes website. I'll put that in the show's notes for anyone interested, and the link to order the Sefer. And with that, thank you very much for joining me once again.
Once again, it was a blast.